everyone. Thanks for staying tuned. And as a friendly reminder, the views expressed on RGV Community Health Hour are for informational purposes only and do not constitute medical advice. Always be sure to consult your primary care provider for your specific healthcare needs. So, David, thank you for coming on my show.
Hey, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me, Ricardo.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry, I had your mic muted. So thanks for coming on my show. And as always, like I mentioned before the music break, David is the author of The Adventures of Exo and Psi and the co-founder of South Texas AuthorCon. So David, feel free to tell our audience a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, your educational background, and feel free to take it away.
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up here in the RGV. Graduated from Mackay, and then I didn't think I would stay here in the Valley, but my mom, she really gave me the guilt trip and convinced me to stay here. But I mean, I don't have any negative feelings toward that. I'm happy to graduate from UTRGV, and then just recently I decided to get my master's. So I just completed that in December. Graduated, walked in December, and so yeah. And in between all that, decided to write a children's book. So that's what I'm doing now.
And that's really awesome, and congrats on graduating.
Thank you.
I did, we are friends on social media, and I've known David for a little bit now through, his efforts of writing his book and me just reaching out to the community and, trying to expand the network in as many different ways as possible. That's what I learned in business school, man. You need a network, and it's really important.
Very true.
And so, so I've known David for a little bit, and I was really happy to see you graduating with your master's. And we competed against each other in the business plan competition. David took first place
and you took second.
Yeah. So good friendly competition. We both walked away with money, and happy times that semester, right?
Very happy times.
And then, of course, in the fall, you graduated with your daughter.
Graduated with my daughter.
Both
of us with our masters. That was really cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
So you grew up here. Did you have any plans on anywhere you wanted to move specifically? Or?
Not necessarily, but the plans was to become a doctor.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know. I mean, I guess living here all your life, you kind of want to leave, but things happen for a reason. I found out I wasn't too good with blood or that kind of stuff, so I decided now I gotta change my major, and changed my major several times. Finally ended up on majoring in English with a minor in speech communications.
Wow.
And went into the teaching field. I taught middle school, elementary, and high school.
Nice.
And did that for 14 years. Wrote the book in between that time period, and then now I'm just going out there as an author, presenting to schools and anything really.
Mm-hmm. And so that's your full-time gig?
Full-time right now, yeah.
That's awesome. And so, you talked about teaching for 14 years?
Mm-hmm.
That's a long time. And so in that time, you wrote the book. And so what inspired you to write the book?
So in 2013, I lost my brother to diabetes. And then in 2014, I lost my sister to diabetes, back-to-back years.
Wow.
And it's something that I had seen in my family, but it didn't really hit home until that was the first time I think our family really experienced any kind of loss. And so after my sister passed away, I was driving home from work, and at the time I was teaching at what was awarded as the #1 middle school in the nation.
Wow.
In Sherryland. And so I was just driving home, and I simple prayer like, God, if you want me to do something different with my life, put it in my heart right now. And the idea to write a children's book, call it The Adventures of Exo and Psi, which is a play on the word exercise. The story takes place in a town called OB City, like obesity, where the mayor is diabetes. And what makes the book very unique is that there's actual exercises that kids have to do as they read the book. So when I go out and do presentations, I teach kids about the importance of healthy eating, but I also give them an exercise workout.
Cool. And so, in back-to-back years, I'm sorry to hear that you lost your brother and sister, and that's kind of what spurred the inspiration for your book. And so, it's a great thing that you're doing now, educating the public. And I always love to see your post, where you go and you set up and show, the various amounts of sugars and drinks.
Oh yeah,
and,
yeah.
Just any kind of visual aids to help the kids understand, like, hey, this is what you might not be able to see it, but it's there.
It's there, yeah.
And so, how long did it take you to write the book? And
it took me 6 months to write the book, and it took my illustrator about 1.5 years to do the illustrations. It was my first time writing a book. It was his first time illustrating, so
wow.
it took us about 2 years total. But now working on book number 2, that's going to take a lot less time because now we already had the experience. But yeah, it took about that long.
And when did the book release?
Officially at the end of 2019.
Oh wow!
But of course, in 2020
The
we
pandemic.
had the pandemic, and so right as I was about to go out and start presenting in schools, all that got shut down for about a year and a half. So it really didn't start till about 2022.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know that struggle. You know, for me, you know, like I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons I know David is because I'm also an author.
Mm-hmm.
And my book, I mean, it took me a long time. And I always tell people, technically, I started it in 2009 because when I was deployed in Afghanistan, I was just writing in my journal essentially what would become my book. But back to your book. So how often do you go to schools? Is it, you know, you stay pretty booked in your calendar? Because I do always see you posting.
Yeah. Actually, last semester was pretty tame. I don't think I did. I may have done one presentation.
Oh, wow.
But and honestly, man, it was a heck of a summer. I lost another sister to diabetes.
Oh, wow.
Which that inspired me to train to do a 250-mile walk from McAllen to San Antonio.
Wow.
And then about a month after that, I lost a brother-in-law.
Wow.
And so, I mean, if I'm being honest, man, I went through that semester just really being depressed. I mean, I didn't know how all these things were affecting me,
Mm-hmm.
and I really didn't have too much motivation to get out there and do presentations. And you know, at the start of this year, started the same. You know, didn't have any presentations, and I'm like, hey, man, wake up! You gotta get out there. And just in the next 2-3 weeks, I have I think like 10 or 11 presentations.
Wow.
So yeah, it's picked up really really big recently, and then this month I'm featured on in Texas Monthly. They came down, they did an article, and it came out in the March edition. So I'm hoping that's going to open up doors, not just here in the Valley, but across the state of Texas for me to go out and do that.
Yeah, no doubt. And I do want to ask you some more about that, but we are going to take a quick music break again. So
cool.
Be sure to stay tuned, everybody, so we can hear David talk about how he ended up in Texas Monthly. So stay tuned. Thanks. All right, and we're back with David Norick, or Ceron.
Either or.
Yeah, Norick is his author name.
Yeah.
So sometimes I slip and call you Norick.
Hey, it's okay, man.
Yeah, but so getting back to the Texas Monthly thing, I was really happy when I saw that you were doing that. And if you don't mind telling us, how did that all come about?
Yeah, so a few years ago, actually right before the pandemic, and a writer from the Texas Observer magazine, she came down. She was doing a big thing on diabetes here in the Rio Grande Valley. She reached out to me about my sister, Carmen, and if she would be willing to, you know, to be talked about, and I agreed, and we just kept in touch. And last year, she reached out to me just to see how my family was doing. I told her that my sister passed away, and she said, "By the way, I'm no longer writing for Texas Observer, but I'm writing for Texas Monthly."
Wow.
And she's like, "Hey, you know what? This might be a good story to write about." And so she pitched it to her editor, and he gave her the thumbs up, and she said, "Hey, we're going to do a story." And
Awesome.
so they came down last year, and then a little bit of about a month ago to finish with the photos and everything, and
Wow.
got the write-up.
So they went with you to a school and, you know, followed you doing your thing?
Yeah, they did that. We went to Progreso.
Oh,
A lot of cool things like that, and it was just cool for them to see everything that goes on. 'Cause, I mean, I go to Progreso to go buy medication for my sisters.
Mm.
So yeah.
And so how long did that all take? You know, like you said, they came, you know, last year and a little bit, you know, to take some more pictures.
Yeah, I think in total about 5 months.
Wow.
Yeah,
Really?
and I mean, and growing up, I guess I was a magazine nerd, and my favorite magazine to read was Texas Monthly.
Wow.
So
it is a great, dude. They do such a great job.
They do.
The Texas Tribune as well.
Yeah.
Like, dude, Texas Monthly and the Texas Tribune, killing it for, you know.
Yeah, and so it was always like in the back of my head, like it would be really cool to be featured in that magazine. And then when they came down, when I got the thumbs up, I'm like, okay, but still, like I need to see it in my hands, right? That this is actually happening. And when I got the magazine in my hands, I was like, man, that's pretty cool. I'm in Texas Monthly.
So the physical copy is out now?
It's out now.
Yeah, you shared the, you know, of course, the online.
digital, but yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. So, getting back to, you know, your book, you said you're working on a second book right
Second
now?
book. Second book is going to be called The Adventures of Aero and Bix, or Aerobics, where the villains are going to be Marshmallow, like Marshmallow, and Candy Cane. So this every book that I write, I want the villain to represent something unhealthy.
Mm.
In The Adventures of Exo and Psy, it's potato chips. So the villains are Chip and his dog Nacho. And then in the second book, it's going to be sweets. The third book will be called The Adventures of Flex and Bill, or like Flexible. And the villain for that book will be Dr. Fizz, who's going to represent like soda.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you have any, do you already have like a grand, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like not environment, but like a creative world that you're obviously, you started with one book and you're
Yeah.
thinking about expanding it. So do you have like, not that you have to share it with us.
No,
but
no,
just
no, I
out of
do. I
curiosity,
mean,
like a, what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry. Like a timeline or
Yeah, I mean, all these stories are going to take place in OB City.
Mhm.
And secretly, Mayor Diane Beatties, she's the one behind wanting everybody to be unhealthy.
Mhm.
But nobody knows that. Nobody's going to know that until book number 7, where Exo and Psy, Flex and Bill, and Arrow and Bix are all going to get together and finally defeat Mayor Diane Beatties. And what's funny and sad at the same time is that it's really modeled after the Valley. For McAllen, the city of McAllen, it's going to be 8 straight years, we are the most obese city in America. But really, if you look at the stats, they include the cities of Mission and Edinburgh.
Hmm.
And it's really just a snapshot of the Rio Grande Valley.
Yeah.
Here in the RGV, 40% of the population are either diabetic or pre-diabetic. 45% are considered obese, with an additional 30% being overweight but not obese.
Mhm.
And then lastly, 42% of the valley is illiterate.
Wow.
So, and from the book, I started a company called FitLit, or Fitness Literacy.
Mhm.
So I'm fighting obesity, diabetes, and illiteracy.
That's awesome. And one thing that I saw you post about a while back that I've been really curious about is the park. I saw that you
Oh,
had
yeah.
collaborated with a city, or can you talk a little bit about
I've
that?
partnered with Unidos contra la Diabetes. They're a great diabetes organization here in the valley, and they've donated 4 sets of signs. And at first they were called the FitLit Parks, but now I've changed the name to FitLit Trail Tales.
Nice.
And so what it is we've blown up the pages of my book onto big 24 by 36 aluminum signs, and those are placed along the trails of, like, in a park. So families, they walk, they read the page, they keep on walking, go on to the next page, and if there's an exercise on that page, there's a QR code that families could scan. It'll take them to a YouTube video with a personal trainer leading them in the exercise.
Cool.
So it's a way to get out, have fun reading, and have fun exercising.
Mhm.
Because we do have that's one of the things that Wallet Hub is the place where they come out with all these stats, with McAllen being the most obese.
Mhm.
And they said we do have a lot of parks, but people aren't going to these parks. So if I can do something to encourage families to get out there and read and exercise and go out and be outside,
Mhm.
I'm trying to do my part with that.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And then getting back to talking about the statistics you gave, and McAllen being one of the most
obese, yeah.
Also see, of course, you share how YouTubers from around the
Yeah.
world come and you basically host them and show them around. And I'm just curious of, like, do you ever proactively go and like message a YouTuber?
No.
I figured probably not.
No. In fact, the first one that blew up, it was 2 years ago now.
Was it
Tyler Oliveira.
Oh, I was thinking, was there one from Japan, I think?
Yeah, that was the second one. But
Oh,
but
okay.
the one that blew everything up was I like to go do mall walks in the morning. Normally from 9 to 10, the mall in McAllen opens, but there's nobody there. Like, all the shops are closed except for Starbucks.
Mm.
But there's some people that go and they walk around the mall.
Wow.
If you do 1 lap, it's 1.25 miles.
Wow.
And this one day, I was late. I was getting there about 10:30. I was upset. I'm like, man, there's gonna be more. It's gonna be more crowded. I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was finishing up, I saw this young guy, and he was on one of the scooters there at the mall. And I was listening to him talk about health, and I stopped him and I said, "Hey, man, you're talking about health?" And he pulled me aside and he had me show him around McAllen. And about a month after that, I had people from around the world messaging me like, "Hey, have you know?" Or friend giving or asking to be friends on social media and stuff. And I'm like, "What's going on?" And they said, "Have you seen your video?" I'm like, "No." So finally, I got a link, and apparently Tyler Oliveira, that was a big YouTuber. He's a huge YouTuber, and that video right now has over 14 million views.
Wow.
And from that, other YouTubers, other social media influencers, they caught
See
wind
it,
of it. They
yeah.
saw it, like from Japan, and he reached out to me like, "Hey, I'm gonna be in McAllen. Will you show me around?"
Wow.
For sure. Last year, a gentleman from Bosnia, same thing, came down, and then the Dr. Phil show got wind of it, and they reached out to me, and
I remember
they
that
came
too.
down and they did a feature on McAllen being the most obese. Yeah.
Wow, that's so crazy how that all turned, just from your mall walks.
From the mall walks, yeah.
Dude, this is why I love having people on my show and telling their stories. And that's why it's important to get out every day. I think it's what's his name? He's an actor, and he says that 80% of success is just showing up. You just got to show up every day. Whether hopefully you can do some work, and hopefully you're in the right mind state to get work done, but just showing up is the big uphill struggle. And like you said, you're going through your depressed state, and not doing many of the your things at the school.
But you know what? It was during that time that I started training to walk from McAllen to San Antonio, and that walking, being outdoors, because I did transition from walking in the mall to just outdoors. Man, I cannot tell you how helpful that was for for my depression, for my mental health. And man, I just learned firsthand the importance of being out there exercising and like walking in my case.
Yeah, no, it's the same for me. I love to run. I haven't done it in a while, but man, running is really just like helps clear your mind. It helps make you feel better. Like being active, right? Like you gotta, so even me now, like I said, I haven't ran in a while, but I went on a walk with my daughters a couple of days ago, and I'm like, why am I so sore? What did I do? It was like a 30-minute walk, and I'm sore. But so do you have any other YouTubers like lined up in the near future? Or people coming to visit and
not right now.
Okay. So Texas Monthly was your last big,
the last big thing so far right now.
Huge thing. That's really awesome.
So I'm just eager to see what doors that opens. Hopefully it opens up some doors. But regardless, just being on there, man, that was really cool. Sure. Yeah.
And I, without a doubt, especially I'm sure. When was the Dr. Phil stuff?
That was last June. Yeah, it's almost a year ago.
Oh wow, dang, time goes fast. I feel like you just posted that a couple months ago.
Yeah.
But even this year is going fast. I can't believe we're already halfway through March. Just about. So, well, I'd like to ask you a little bit more about that Dr. Phil stuff, but I'm gonna take another quick music break. So we'll be right back, everyone. So stay tuned. All right, and we're back with David Norick or David Ceron.
either one, just David.
Yeah, David. So yeah, if you want, tell us a little bit about the Dr. Phil stuff and how that all came about. Was that after the YouTuber stuff?
Yeah, after the Tyler Oliveira YouTube last year, about a year and a half ago. One of the producers from the Dr. Phil show messaged me on Instagram. They're like, "Hey, we saw your YouTube video. We were interested in talking to you and going down to McAllen and seeing what the most obese city in America looks like," which is cool because at first I'm like, is this real, right? Like Dr. Phil show?
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you ever feel like you get scammed?
Yeah. No, and then the gentleman said, "No, I mean, here's my number. Give me a call. We'll talk on the phone." We did, and then they said, "Okay, we're gonna send a camera crew down there and show them around, just like on the YouTube video, why McAllen is the most obese." And they came down, and they wanted me to drive them around and to show them why McAllen was the most obese city. And one of the things that really stood out to me was, as I was driving them and they were asking me questions, we finished one part of the interview, and the producer said, "That was great, but can we do that again?" But this time mention the words food addiction. And I was like, okay. And so we redid the shot. I said the word food addiction. And then after it happened I'd say about 5 or 6 times, I'm like, okay, they have their own agenda. And I'm talking about my brother and my sister who's passed away. And I'm talking about food addiction being a root cause, which it really wasn't. It was diabetes, right? And then they wanted to again paint the not just McAllen but the whole Rio Grande Valley as, you know, people who are addicted to food. And it got to the point where they initially said they were going to come just record their segment and that was going to be on the Dr. Phil show, and I was fine with that. After we recorded the whole day, about a day later, the producers reached back to me and they said, hey, you know what, this is really interesting, we want you on the actual show now. I'm like, okay. And I didn't have anything to worry about as far as all those times I said food addiction, because at least if I'm on the show, I can clear that up. I can clarify,
Yeah.
you know, because I'll stand up for my brother, my deceased brother and sister,
Yeah, of
my
course.
my city, you know, the place where I live. And so they send me my flight information, hotel information, and a couple days before that, they messaged me again and they said, you know what, we're not going to need you to come up after all. We're just going to air the footage. And then I really had an issue with that, because I said, okay, they're going to put on national television me talking about food addiction being the root cause of my brother and sister passing away, how the Rio Grande Valley residents are addicted to food. I'm like, and I'm not going to be there to defend what I said.
Yeah.
And it's not even what I said. It's what the producers were putting in my in my mouth to say, right?
Yeah.
And so a day before they were going to run the show, I reached out to them and I said, you know what? I don't feel comfortable with you guys using any of that footage because it's not genuine. And they're like, well, I mean, 'cause they'd spent thousands of dollars to come down here, right? And I'm like, you know what? I weigh the options. Being on the Dr. Phil show, that would be a great opportunity for me. But it's not as important as not being honest with my family, with my, you know, here in the valley. And so we spoke for about an hour, and they agreed to not use
or to take an hour, huh?
or to take out any time I use the words food addiction. But sure enough, on the day of when that show aired, there I was twice using the word food addiction. So I called them up right afterwards and I said, look, I don't want to threaten you guys with legal action, but we'd already talked about this. You guys agreed to take that out. And so they edited that out now. So if you go and you see the episode where I came out, and the episode's called Appetite for Destruction. And so if you go in and you look at that episode, I no longer use the words food addiction in that. And then they told me that, like, yeah, the reason we don't want you on is because they had a whistleblower that they found that used to work for the American Diabetes Association, that he was going to be on. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. That guy has a lot more credibility than me, right?
Yeah.
And he's going to expose some secrets that need to be exposed. I'm nobody. I'm from McAllen, right? Who am I? But then I saw the show, and they had this gentleman who, according to him, he would drink a gallon of Diet Coke and he was losing weight. And I'm like, okay, the guy who used to work for American Diabetes Association, I understand, but you're having this guy who's drinking a gallon of Diet Coke and promoting that, as opposed to somebody like me who's out here genuinely trying to make a difference. Like, okay, this is Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
You're putting that guy on there just for clicks.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it left a bad taste in my mouth, and just, you know, how they may not be as genuine to really want to bring this issue to light.
Yeah, and especially for someone like you know, who obviously cares about the community enough to write a book and promote healthy living and to do what you do. So for them to do what they did is, you know, a bit of a dirty move, but like you said, they need the clicks, they need the views, you know, that's kind of the world they live in. And, you know, of course they don't think about, you know, the repercussions of what the people they have on. And, you know, it's almost like I hate to mention her, but the Cash Me Outside girl, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know, you go on, you might say something or do something, and maybe it changes your life, but probably not always for the better.
No, and when I talked to the producers, I told them, because Dr. Phil now, he, I believe it's him, Steve Harvey, and someone else. They have their studios now in Fort Worth. They moved from Hollywood to Fort Worth. And when I talked to the producers, it got heated for a while, and I said, you know what? Apparently you can take Dr. Phil out of Hollywood, but you can't take the Hollywood out of Dr. Phil. And they didn't like that, but I'm like, that's exactly what you guys are doing. You know, you just want clicks, which I understand, but not at the expense of my brother, my deceased brother and sisters, and the place where I live, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm like I told you before in the break where we talked about this a little bit. You know, I'm super happy that you did that, because you know, maybe not everybody would have, you know, and of course
Yeah.
when it involves your deceased brother
Yeah.
and sister, you know, I feel like most people probably would, but I mean, I don't know, it's just kind of about respect, you know.
It is. Plus, I mean, in the community here, I need the RGV's help to get my mission moving forward, right?
Mhm.
And if I'm here bashing the place where I live, how can I expect them to help me out?
Well,
No.
what drives me crazy about it, not too much off topic, but blanket statements or just like blanket, like, oh, everybody in the valley is
Yeah.
obese, or like, no, it's not the case. Like, yes, there's obese people here, like there's obese people everywhere, and there might be more of them here.
Yeah.
But if you look outside, I see people running all the time in the
Yeah.
parks and being healthy and active, and so many running groups and so many 5K runs and 10K runs and walks, and so the community is active.
It is.
and the community does care. You know, it's just, and what I know from going to school is the genetics only play a part of it. A lot of it is our environment. So
Mhm.
even if you're running every day, eating right, being healthy, you can still get a cancer and you can still
Yeah.
get sick.
Yeah.
And so that's what kind of drives me crazy about the way they were acting, like food addiction. Like, no, man, it's just,
And it's not just them. Every YouTuber that's come down now that's reached out to me, they asked me before, by the way, if you know anybody who's like morbidly obese, can you reach out to them and see if they would be willing to be in the video? Because they know that's what, you know, gets clicks.
yeah.
So, I mean, and yeah, and they come down here expecting to see like us living in the world of Wall-E, right? Where everybody's on.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like blanket statements.
Exactly.
Where people just, nothing, I can't say nothing, but generally most things aren't black and white. There's
No.
always gray areas. There's always like, you know.
Yeah.
So for them to act like that, like I said, it's understandable, but I'm really glad that you did what you did and stood up for yourself and your community, because, you know, one thing I was talking about with David in the break too was how happy I am with what UTRGV is doing for the community, with all these medical schools and podiatry schools and Neuro Institute and our human genetics department, and man, really out here killing it, UTRGV.
And that goes back to what you asked me about me after high school wanting to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, man, everything that UTRGV offers, it's like, man, why would anybody want to leave? I know some of these kids still want to get out of here, but I mean, UTRGV is so far ahead of other universities that, you know, there's so many opportunities here.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, like I was telling you about how I'm thankful that, you know, because I was living up in the Seattle area before coming down for this program, and I was really thankful that I came, because if I would have went to school at University of Washington, the classes, you know, I have a class of 5, you know, in my cohort, 5. If I was going to school at a major university, it'd be at least 25 to 35, you know, and then it being a new program here, I was able to hop into various projects, help lead these projects and develop them. And I wouldn't have had those opportunities in a major university. Like, yeah, I have a big university name, maybe potentially if I would have went to school there, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what that name on that degree says,
Yeah,
or
it
the
doesn't.
name of the university. What matters is what you learn and what you take away. And so I was really glad to have come down here and participate and do what I can to help the Valley. And, you know, for me, I've lived most of my adult life in Seattle, Washington area. And so I can understand them, you know, how they, because I grew up in South Texas, and I was, and that's why I joined the military, right, to just get away.
Just to get away.
And so I understand that feeling, but like you said, and that's why I try to share our program as much as I can, because a lot of times people feel like they got to go to the coasts, right? They either got to go to the East Coast or the West Coast to get like the good job training or the good education or the good whatever. And so I've started to realize more and more that those opportunities are here and they're more affordable, and sometimes they might even be better, you know, based on what you're trying to do. Like our human genetics department, you know, I was telling you about the people who run it. They're world-renowned scientists, and the one who leads it, or one of the professors who leads the program, he says he's pretty sure we're the only human genetics department in the world with our own MRI machine for research.
No way.
Yeah, so like, you know, other departments might have to collaborate with somebody who has an MRI machine, but we have our own MRI machine. Yeah, so it's really remarkable with what's happening here in the Valley and the stuff that's going to come out in the future.
Yeah.
So we have about 5 minutes left, David. If there's anything, I'm going to just give you the mic.
Yeah, I mean, and you, again, sticking with the RGV, that's why when I started South Texas AuthorCon, it's like there is so much talent here in the Rio Grande Valley.
That's for sure.
And we focus on local authors, local illustrators. Even though we did have a celebrity illustrator this year, Maddie Gonzalez,
Mm-hmm.
but she's originally from Mission.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, as you know, we brought schools for day one of South Texas AuthorCon, and I wanted kids to see there is so much talent here in the Rio Grande Valley, and so much talent that can inspire them.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget. I was just walking around on day one, and I heard this young man tell his teacher, "This is the greatest day of my life."
Oh.
And so I stopped what I was doing, and I asked her, "Ma'am, can I please record your student saying that again?" And she said yes, and I recorded him. I mean, that to me, that's all I needed to hear.
Yeah.
For that young man, he didn't care whether our name was R.L. Stein or J.K. Rowling, whatever.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
No, it inspired everything we were doing. Inspired him and showed him that even for somebody here in the Rio Grande Valley, they can do something.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's what I'm doing my best to try to, the Rio Grande Valley is a great place to live. It's a great place to raise a family.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm tired of being looked at in a negative light. There's so much great positive things happening in the RGV, especially here in UTRGV.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to continue to do my part to try to,
Change the perception.
change the perception.
Yeah,
Exactly.
'cause, like I was saying, they usually try to put blanket statements on
Yeah.
stuff, and and really it's because they look at the valley and they already have in their head, right? They already have their bias or their preconceived
Yeah.
notion, and so they just think that, hey, they're all just lazy, food
Yeah,
addicted,
yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just like, no, it's way more complex than that. It's way more complex than that.
And the days of Taco Tech are over, man. This is UTRGV. It's the place to be.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, we're getting a football team.
Yeah, no doubt. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And so, one thing I want to end with, like you were mentioning about AuthorCon, I talked to you a little bit about it before we started the show, about how I was like having to breathe through,
Yeah.
the chaos of these kids, right? Because I was not really a panic attack, but it just was kind of overwhelming. And so it was two times where I had to just breathe to calm myself down from the chaos. And then I also had to like breathe to fight back the tears of just, like I told you, just seeing that whole room of all these kids and
Yeah.
all the potential they have.
Yeah.
They have all the potential in the world, and of course it needs to be nourished and fostered, and,
Yeah.
and they need to be lifted up by the community, which is why you're here. And
Yeah.
and so I'm so glad you came on the show, David. Thank you so much for your time.
Ricardo, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I hope we can do it again sometime soon.
Anytime, man.
Yeah, so thanks again, David, and thanks for everyone listening. This is DJ Caliche Kid saying, stay healthy, stay curious, and let's thrive together, RGV.